good exercises are, most importantly, they're heavy exercises. So if you want to use some technical terms, people may say 85% of your 1 rep max. Now, I don't recommend you going out and doing a 1 rep max test. What's more useful is finding an exercise that you can lift 6 times or 5 times. And if you've got probably one more lift, so you lift your 6 and then you put the weight down and you go, yeah, I probably could have done one more. That's your weight, essentially. So it needs to be heavy. Why does it need to be heavy? Because we need the bending stresses from the muscles for the bones to react to. If we've got that high muscle activity, then we've got bone activity, essentially. So we're using heavy weights. So if you go in, and this is in part where fitness marketing is a little bit flawed, and it depends on the individual and their state, which we're going to talk about in a second. But fitness marketing will say this exercise is great for bone health, but it's using 1 kilo dumbbells and you're holding them for minutes at a time. If it's that type of exercise, it's probably not going to be hugely advantageous for bones. If you are a little more frail and out of condition with regards to exercise, then it's a good place to start. But if you only ever do that, it's not really going to have an effect. You need to do what is called strength training. Now, strength training isn't just a case of lifting weights, as I've mentioned. It's lifting a specific intensity of weight, a weight that you can lift 6 times and probably do one more. And then you would do that, say, for 3 sets, and you may just do 4 or 5 exercises of it. It doesn't need to be a lot because, as I've mentioned, they need to be big exercises. So they don't need to be big exercises, just more advantageous that they're big exercises because you can get more muscles working at the same time and you get a similar stimulus all throughout the body. So, as an example, a good exercise is a back squat. So a back squat is with a barbell on your back. So you've got the compression weight going down through your body because the weight is on your back. So it's going right down through the spine into the pelvis either side and then going down the legs as well. So you get that with regards to the bar literally trying to squash your body into the floor. So you get that aspect of it. You also get ankle bending, knee bending, hip bending, and maintenance of proper spine position. What does all of that mean? All of that means the whole of those leg muscles are working. Lower leg, thigh, hip muscles, and then because we're maintaining proper position of the spine, you also get the muscle tension through the torso as well. So you get sort of 3/4 of the body, let's say, as long as it's heavy enough, working very hard to maintain the position that you're in, but also to complete the movement that you're doing. It has a degree of functionality to it in that it's squatting down and squatting up, like you would squat down into a seat and get back up out of a seat. So it has that part to it as well. So it's a very advantageous exercise, but as long as it's heavy, that's probably the most important thing. Then comes the deadlift. Again, there's the functionality thing of you're lifting something off the floor. Again, it's a heavy weight, so it's developing grip strength because you're lifting a weight off the floor. You've got the whole lower body working and you've got the upper body because when you lift that off the floor, because you're holding onto the weight sort of in front of you or by your side, again, the weight is pulling down on the arms, which again is compressing the body into the floor. So again, the body's got to react to that compression. So it reacts to the movement and the compression that you're doing. But it won't do the upper body quite as much, which would then come into exercises like overhead pressing and like bench pressing or dumbbell pressing or something to that effect. So overhead press is where you stand up, you'll have a barbell or a couple of dumbbells, and you press the weight up over your head. Again, that has a functionality to it because you're lifting something up onto a high shelf. So it has that ability to develop that. But also you get the compression that now is coming down through the arms. And because it's an overhead press, you get the elbow bend, you get the shoulder bend, which is getting all of those muscles of the arm working, and you've kind of got the grip strength to go with it. So you've got the forearm muscles and the hand working as well. So you can start to see now that there are a lot of exercises, or there are a lot of muscles and bones being impacted by just these first 3 exercises. You've kind of covered the whole body in essence. Bench press is where you lie down on a bench and you push them off. You push the weight off your chest. Now that again, it's perfectly good exercise, but it does only go through upper body. Obviously, the lower body isn't getting anything because you haven't got that reaction going down through the legs because they're just because you're led down on a bench. But it's a perfectly good exercise. Do the bench press just because it doesn't have a sort of a functionality to it, or it doesn't do the lower body. Then that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Any sort of pulling exercise, so rows, pull-ups, those types of exercises, again, very heavy. All back muscles are working, arm muscles are working, shoulder muscles are working. So all the bones that are covered by those muscles, they are being stimulated. So those are very good exercises to go with it. The only thing that you will miss with pulls is you don't get the compression because you're pulling the weight towards you rather than it being on top of you, if that makes sense. But again, that's not a reason not to do the exercise. They are very good exercises. It's just the squat, the deadlift and the overhead press, you just have that added compression with it. That's the only difference. But most importantly, they need to be heavy. Like I said at the start, you need to be able to do 6 reps and probably 1 more for 3 sets. The caveat that comes with it, if you are new to exercise or if you are exploring bone health and bone density and things like that, then it's probably not a good place to start. You probably want to build a degree of condition into the body as a precursor. So build some muscular endurance, build some core strength, improve flexibility of joints so you can move through these exercises a lot more effectively. Now you can do these exercises, or you can do this type of training, just maybe not with these exercises done in a particular way. It will just be smaller exercises like bicep curls, like leg extensions on machines and things like that, just to get the body stimulated in that way. If you go straight in, it's a bit like you're throwing yourself in the deep end. What's more effective is if you start in the shallow end, walk down the steps, get used to the water, get used to the depth of the water, and then work your way down to the deep end of the pool, which is doing the heavy squats, the heavy deadlifts, and things like that, when your body has a degree of capacity to cope with all those stresses a little bit more effectively. Because if you can think of like a pyramid, strength training is starting to move you up the pyramid. There is still a base that needs to be built within the body to be able to manage the stresses, because it is a very stressful type of training, not only for the bones, not only for the muscles, but also for the nervous system, because it has to stimulate all of this, not only at the time, but it's then got to stimulate the growth and the repair after as well. So the nervous system has to work for that much longer, which can be tiring. So it's you don't necessarily feel the burn, it's just exhausting because it's very heavy. And again, I could talk more about this type of training, which I will do in future podcast episodes, and the caveats and how to build into it and things like that. So that will all come eventually. But for now, you've got bones, what they are, how they're sort of grown, if you will, their sort of life course, how they get stronger, and then how they sort of break down as life goes on. And then you've got some examples of good exercises with some caveats of who should be doing it, when they should be doing it, and probably the most important thing that comes with all of this, it needs to be heavy. You need to be able to complete 6 reps and probably one more.